All right. I'll call the meeting to order. At 5 minutes of 5. First thing on the agenda is to review the minutes. Has everybody had a chance to review the minutes yet?
I did.
Did you have any changes?
No.
I just had one little one, you spelled my name wrong. Down toward about the 7th line down.
First page.
Mr. Kruger, you got one G. I don't really care, but just to let you know. Yeah, 7th line up from the bottom on the right-hand side. Did you, are you just reading it now?
No, I really.
Do you have any changes? Okay. Do I hear a motion to accept the minutes?
So moved.
All in favor?
I'm sorry.
Huh?
I had the second, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, the second.
Okay.
So the Chatter had the engineer, you tested positive on Friday for COVID.
I swear, everybody
It's like, well, our guy Kenny is out too, he just tested positive. It's like, the good thing is it happened over the weekend, so he wasn't here. But it's like, I've had any number of close calls now.
Yeah.
Like people that test positive after they go home from seeing me, I'm like, so maybe.
All right. So we signed some abatements, but Glenn Turner will be coming in from YAA to discuss that bill that we had about a year ago.
That's this one here.
Yeah. He wants to discuss that with us. And Wayne and Curry had figured out what the bill would be if we took off all the penalties and interest. So right now, the bill for the YAA is $1187.46. If we took off all the penalty charges and all that, I guess it would be $700.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's pretty obvious somebody was using a lot of.
Oh,
Like it was just,
I got a whole PowerPoint presentation.
So he's got $439 worth of abatements if that's something, but we'll discuss it with Glenn when he gets in.
Mm-hmm.
Just to let you know, I think you got the paperwork over there.
Yeah, there should be a stack over there for both, yeah.
yeah.
So we're gonna leave that, because Glenn hasn't shown up yet. We'll leave that open until he gets here. And then Tyler and Howard are discussing the project, but they're not coming tonight.
No.
He's sick.
Yep.
All right.
Just as well, he stays away.
Yeah.
So we're moving on to old business. First thing that is on the agenda here for old business is stations 1, 2, and 4. Have you heard anything on those?
All right, so station 1, 2, and 4.
This is on the pilot study and stuff.
Yeah.
New
Received
treatment plant.
plan, so received approval, next step is the F&E, so it's once pilot, so once it's funded. So I sent them an email and told them that they all, the articles both passed.
Okay.
So they're notified that as of July 1 it's funded.
So they can get to work on it.
Yeah.
Station 3, Tyler and Howard.
So they have a contract, that's what I put on your desk there. So they issued out a contract.
Okay.
That was pretty quick.
Do you have a copy of this over there?
No, I can, oh, all right.
We'd all have to sign the same one.
Yeah.
We've gone over it with them before.
Yeah.
Did they change anything?
Not that I could see. I just received it as, you know,
Call the staff.
Yeah, it like literally came in the last 30 minutes.
It was for 45,000.
I think that's the short term. Engineering for the short term. Which,
Sure, read it over and then we'll, if we all agree to it, then we'll sign it.
we had reduced the MIOX going in, and we stopped, and then we noticed that we had to climb, our output of iron and manganese started rising. So-
Right.
So they're gonna have to dechlorinate prior to the XI, the IX, I forget, IX.
Yeah, that MIOX is supposed to have a real high oxidation rate.
Yeah,
That's what draws it out of solution.
right.
He said it's more than a disinfectant, it's an oxidizer.
Yeah, so the manganese levels dropped right away after we brought it back up, but the iron hasn't dropped yet.
That would have a lot of manganese in it.
Isn't like what we're pulling up out of the ground, I believe it was a total of 3 before, when the plant was designed. I believe it's a total of 6 or 7 now between the iron and manganese going into the plant. We've actually had to slow it down to actually keep our removal rates.
See,
So
yes,
this filter will have to be put back, when they do the long term, they're gonna have to put that filter in line. I think we need it now.
that'll plug those screens up too, you know, those wells.
Yeah.
They have to be cleaned more often.
Yeah, I asked them to station for the well 5, I asked them to do the electrical part of it so we can get it qualified, so we can run it and qualify it and get through DEP on that part of it, and they're supposed to get back to me. Because it's distinctly 2 separate pieces, splicing in the wires out there and the VFD, and they're 2 separate spots, so I don't see why they can't do it as 2 separate.
Yeah.
And if I can have everything back, I might be able to take something offline to.
Was the DEP approved the pilot for Main Street?
Yes.
So that's all set, they're just gonna, but they're doing that under a separate contract for this.
Right.
Sorry. I don't know, it was a while since they were talking about it.
Yeah.
It's the long-term one, then it'd be separate, completely separate building with a couple of ion exchange building.
Right.
We think can run all 3 of those with the new green sand.
Yep.
We haven't had any PFAS tests coming back since the last meeting.
No, I just actually sampled that because we were down at Hatfield Woods trying to align the pipes and get them to the same elevation, which we did. But so they're backordered because we have to shrink down for the meter. And there's a backorder on the 6x8 reduces.
Come on. Just a plain fitting.
Yep. Well, they come out of Israel, so.
I don't understand why this country can't make things themselves.
Well, that's what we need to start doing again.
Yeah, I mean, for it to be cheaper to do it over there and ship it across the freaking world in a ship.
I know.
Yeah, I don't
It's
see
just
how
nuts.
it is.
Doesn't make sense,
I don't
does it?
get it.
So, any idea on when that's coming in?
He didn't, he didn't give me any idea, and that kind of holds that project up. I don't want to order, we're close enough, I could probably
Yeah,
put a string
right.
line
You work away.
and get the vault in, but I wanted to get a little closer.
Yeah, can you just sign in?
Yep,
right there?
absolutely.
Thank you very much.
Am I signing this copy?
Yep.
Actually, we need to do multiples for them, or just?
There were
we all
3
sign?
lines, so I didn't know if it,
No, but I mean, do we sign multiple originals, or just?
no, I have been just emailing back to them. I'm not even sure they're back in their office yet. I know DEP brought everybody back.
Yeah. So everybody's playing different roles. so
Yeah.
They never can tell.
Now, can we do this before July 1st?
Well, they probably won't get moving, as long as the bill doesn't come in until after July 1.
Just make sure you put that in their email.
Yep.
Yeah, just don't send us any bills till after July 1st, because it's not good till, we can't spend it till after July 1st.
Well, actually, it's gotta be signed by the accountant anyway, he can put the effective date on his bill after the first anyway.
So we're gonna move back up to new business, in Glenn's here. This is gonna be on the water bill for the YAA, so.
So I'm here representing the YEA. This is not for myself personally. I'm here to dispute is what I feel is an overcharge that occurred in July of 2020. Now, I've been a member of the YEA for 12 years. I was in charge of the water there and what went on with the bathrooms and so on and so forth for about 10 years. I ran the snack shack for 8 years, so I knew what was going on with water and when things broke and when we had issues. And I dealt with the water department quite a lot over the years when we had issues with meters and so on and so forth. So I know a little bit about it. I know what the history is like. I know them when we had like a water issue one winter. So I know what the bills should be. And over the years, they've been fairly consistent. I'm not going to show them all. But we got a bill for July of 2020 when we didn't even have a baseball season. And it was for the snack shack.
You didn't have a baseball season then?
Nope.
Oh,
Nope, we had a partial semi-season. They got some games in, but we didn't, we weren't using the facilities. The bathrooms weren't even open. I'm the one who winterizes the bathrooms. I winterize all the water lines, the clubhouse. This happens to be for the snack shack, but for both buildings. And neither one was used. So when I got the statement, at that time I was also the treasurer, I contacted the water department immediately and got me with since.
So,
we have the 2 buildings, the snack shack and the YAA building.
okay, so there's water that runs
Yep. To both.
to the dugout.
Yep.
And then there's one that runs up to the snack shack, and that's one line.
Right, I don't know if the dugout has water or not.
That dugout does not,
I didn't think it did.
no. So that water line that runs to the snack shack is a shut-off, which you probably.
Yeah,
obviously
somewhere
saw
in between.
Right out front there, which goes into the basement, and there's a meter there. And we have a sink, we have a water heater, we have a toilet. We do have a soda machine, but again, that wasn't used either. There were no floods, the toilet wasn't even, nothing was even connected. And I'm the one who disconnects everything. And I go in there during the winter, I spend a lot of time in that, and it just wasn't used.
But the meter numbers changed?
All right, so the YAA building during that period he's talking had 0 usage, and I believe the meter is out. It's back in now, I guess.
The clubhouse?
Yeah.
So I'll give you a little history on the meters. So going back years ago, and I did this with the water department, we had some issues, and always probably will too.
Used to freeze up.
Until we get a new building over there.
Yeah.
It used to freeze up, and that freeze plate, which I think would
Yeah.
break, and then sometimes we had floods, and so over the years, I would, in the wintertime, I'd go in there and winterize that. I'd actually undo both ends, drain it out, make sure it was totally drained. I'd drain all the lines in the building, and I did the same thing at the snack shack. And And I did that for the snack shack, and then I would reconnect it, but there was nothing running. Like, even if somebody ran a sink for a month, it wouldn't be that much.
So that's the snack building. This is the period that he says nothing happened, but we can see that something definitely does happen. Our meters are positive displacement. You can blow through them and make them register, but I don't think somebody went on a marathon spree of blowing through them to charge you.
So how many days is that, for those spaces there?
All right, so if we go through, I can tell you that the water came on because you're all zeros right up until June 4th, 2020. Suddenly, you have leaks in there. I don't know what's leaking, but it's a small leak, because you're using like 0.3, 0.5, 0.4, you're using cubic footage. So that accumulates, but that's not the big leak. So on 6/4/2020, that water came on, and you began whatever's dripping. The first large usage began June 18th, 2020. You can see that it started to spew at about, that's 11 cubic foot up to 18 cubic foot. First large use ended, it ended on the 25th. That was 7 days later, somebody shut off whatever they turned on. So that's the graph of the first large usage. You went up to 135 gallons a minute pouring out somewhere. I don't know where, but it went out.
135 gallons a minute?
Yeah.
How could a line?
So I don't know whether a hose, I don't know what you do up there, and
The guy
I
knows
just-
well
I
about
do.
8.
right,
And
but
there wasn't anything with 135 gallons a minute.
something got turned on, because obviously the water came on the 4th.
Yeah.
Because there was no leaks, no drips, no nothing. On the 4th, that water got turned on. Even though there was no season, that water got turned on.
Are you saying per minute? Is it
Or per day.
Per
Per
day,
day.
it's not.
Well, it tells you how often it's being used.
No,
Right.
the 135 though.
I didn't spread it out to see whether it's, let's see, if it's looking by hour. So you're using, when you're at your peak, it's 18 cubic foot an hour.
I know, you don't need to give me all the technical data.
You can only fit about 8 gallons per minute through a meter.
So it happened 3 times. That first one ended, the second one began, the second one ended 4 days later, the third one began, and the third one ended 8 days later. And then
So
that was
those
it.
are in July. And there's nothing going on down there at
No.
that time?
Then maybe somebody used the sink, but we didn't use, in 2019, it wasn't open, the bathrooms weren't open, and in
Yeah, I didn't go
2020,
back into 2019, but I kept going forward, so.
The outdoor spigots weren't on. Like, we have an outdoor spigot that's got a slight leak over the years.
Yeah,
And that
something,
hasn't done.
something's in
And that's
there
been
dripping
leaking
away.
since like 2010.
You said 18 cubic feet in an hour?
Yeah.
It's 7.48 gallons to a cubic foot.
Yeah. That's, what size line is that?
I think it's like 3/4.
We're going in the building.
Yeah, 132 gallons a minute, it wasn't, or 132 gallons an hour.
No, you're saying an hour.
Yeah,
That's
that's
about
an
2
hour.
gallons. No, that makes more sense.
Yeah, 135 gallons.
Yeah, when you were saying the 135
So it's
gallons.
2.2 gallons.
Yeah,
that
a
makes
couple of
sense.
gallons a minute.
Right.
Like, even if that, let's say that place, let's say water was pouring out of there, right?
Yeah, well, it's not.
The sump pump, which runs that building, actually feeds out, and we'll put this in, did that job. But it feeds out to where that back entrance is, where you go down to the dumpster between St. Anne's. So right there, if, let's say that building was flooded, that sump pump pumps out to that ground, and that ground floods like crazy.
Yeah.
Like in the wintertime, we actually had some flooding down there from water seeping in, and we had 8 to 10 inches of water. So I know what it looks like when it floods, and I know what happens when it floods, but there was nothing flooding.
Yeah, it's like 2 gallons.
Like
a
toilets weren't even connected.
So that's 2 gallons.
Like if you told me this was the clubhouse,
minute.
I might be like, maybe, because that place is a disaster.
Yeah,
But the snack shack is tight.
yeah, it's a new building.
And again, I've been in there since, I spent thousands of hours in that place, and there is nothing there now.
So, you don't think somebody turned on a sprinkler out there or
So
anything?
there are no sprinklers attached to that meter.
No?
That meter strictly runs a
Oh,
sink.
you got automatic sprinklers in the field?
The sprinklers are run off a well,
Oh, well.
which is
Oh,
over in the
okay.
clubhouse. There's a sink, there's a toilet, there's another sink.
2 gallons a minute. I was just
There's
thinking
a
that
hot
somebody
water
ran a
heater.
hose out there for water in the line, see it was
And
July.
2 spigots, and that's it.
The spigots are on the outside of the
The
building?
spigots are on the exterior, and those were off and drained.
On the inside?
I drained from the inside, yeah.
So the only thing they could really would have used would have likely been the sinks.
Would have been a sink.
Yep.
And we
Well-
use those, if we have a season, if we had a season, I might, but even that, if you look at the history. and I-
The strange thing is though, it bumps up to right about what you would expect to see if you turn a sink, if you just go in and open up your.
Yeah,
That's a run around 2 gallons a minute, and throw something in,
yeah.
depending on right where your pressure is, and then it's on and it's off. And it's an odd one. And if you can sink, you wouldn't necessarily see the flooding up there. Right, because that doesn't get pumped out from the sump pump.
No, that's close to a septic.
Yeah.
But that would, if you were pumping out that much water,
Well, it's not, it's 2 gallons a minute. Trust me, I've been in houses where they had 3 toilets humming away at 7 gallons a minute.
I had a toilet doing that one time, and it was an expensive
And
lesson on
the
my.
field stayed dry.
Well,
I'm looking for some resolve.
okay.
I've spent enough time with, I forget who the gentleman is who's in the field. Randy, okay, I met with him probably 6 times since 2000,
Yeah.
since that time, in looking to get it resolved. And I called, and I'm getting nowhere. So now I'm here.
All right. Yeah, I know a couple
It's not
times you've
my
been on
money.
the agenda.
If it was my house,
Yeah.
it'd be maybe a different story. And I'm representing a YA here, you know, a youth sports organization that, I don't know.
Yeah, we can't do it. Terry or I can't do it.
Yeah, they can't do it. We have
No,
to do it at a
that's
public
fine,
meeting.
but
We have to do it at a public meeting because the water definitely went through the meter. So this is just an issue with the bill and what we're gonna do about it as a
And
town.
can I ask one other question? So typically, and I don't know how you do things nowadays, but, and I know in my own home I've gotten these letters. Wouldn't you send something out to somebody saying, hey, you have a toilet leak or something?
Yeah, we do leak detection letters.
So in
Yeah.
that case, if you saw such a massive change in usage, let's say this was my residence, and I was paying $40
Did
every
we send a
bill.
letter, I think, or?
I'll have to go back and look, I don't know.
You didn't?
Talk to my-
It has to be in a period when we pull them, and we can't afford to send them out every
Yeah,
quarter.
I'm just saying,
Cost
if that
prohibitive.
was somebody's residence, I think, I don't know, I just thought it would be the normal procedure. That doesn't answer the question, I was just curious.
This was over a 3-day period?
So it was, yeah, there were 3 distinct,
Three times the water got left on. So this being a baseball field for the kids and it's all run by donations, it's like $400 and something of this bill right now is interest and penalties and stuff like that because the bill wasn't paid. So I don't see a problem with taking that off, which would take off this $439 worth of interest and penalties on the 1,187. So that would reduce it down to $748. Being a mistake done, nobody knows who did it or whatever. What if we reduce the bill to $500 even?
Well, we had, the other thing is those, most of that's one excess charge. Because he hasn't paid, none of this has been paid, basic charges haven't been paid.
No,
There was
basic,
one payment of
yes,
165.
basic charges have been paid.
The last payment we received, I think, was in
All
August
right,
of
maybe,
2021.
guys, I'm not the treasurer anymore, but I'm here because I started.
Well, it's, what we have here for a bill will show balance forward as a, you know, it has a number, it doesn't actually have that as a breakdown of what got paid.
The breakdown is right behind it.
Yeah, I turned it over in October, so.
So the basic charges since then haven't been paid, Karen?
The last payment we received, I think, was August 12th of 2021 for $165. I think it's on the top of the first or second page you guys are looking at. It says payment check. You see?
165.
Yeah,
Yeah.
what's the date? I don't have it.
Yeah, it's 8/12.
8/12, yeah.
You nailed it.
I see a 40
Yeah, I'm
hours,
still not finding that.
40, payment 40, 40.
At the top, I think, right? It says payment.
21. I don't see any payment.
It says page 2 of 2.
Oh, yeah, there's one here for 165 that was made in 21. But that was one,
Say that that goes back.
right?
Yeah, payment in May of 2020. We kept the basic up, then we had the excess of 363.19. But yeah, that's like 10 times what they used that similar period in 19.
I think ever, actually, if you look
Yeah.
at the history.
So,
I'd be okay with taking out the demand and finance charges and that excess charge for that one period. Actually, if everything else is brought up to date. Is that,
okay, and how much is, so if we take out the demands and the interest, that came to,
789,
yeah, it came to 700, so what's the one excess that you're looking at?
that one excess is 363.19. That's the one that runs that, so is it 8561 usage, that
Take three what?
363.19. Take that. I wouldn't have, where it is a town volunteer type thing, I wouldn't have a problem using that for that one.
Hey, you got a better deal with him.
Well, you don't have to take the
I
suggestion.
know, I'm just joking, man.
Well, the other thing is maybe on the teams, and I know you're not involved, but maybe you might want to ask who's running it. If
So you'd
there's
pay,
a plumber on one of the teams, because you obviously have a small leak and something's dripping by in there. I can't tell you what.
So
but
the
on
385
7, last year, I could see that it dripped through the entire
Are you
season.
all right with that?
yeah, I'm all right with that. Are you all right with that?
385 total?
Yeah, that's that outdoor space.
385
Yeah.
total.
Yeah, it's offering now.
Yeah, I'm all right with
You're all right
Yeah,
with that?
because the finance and the demand, that stuff we're already being disputed, so no issue getting that. And I mean, for that, considering that's what it is, it's obviously, it had to be used, but
Yeah,
we're never gonna.
it got used, we
We're
don't
never
know
gonna be
how.
able to figure out. one
Right,
way
you
or
know,
the other.
that's way back now, and you're not gonna.
Yeah.
And it's for the kids, and it's all donated money, so, do I hear a motion, if they pay $385, it'll bring the bill
Right,
up
so
to?
I'll move that we waive the demand charges, finance charges, and the excess charge from 7/30/2020, and they pay a bill of $385 to come current.
that. Second motion.
Okay, all in favor? Aye.
Okay. So 385, I'll tell my treasurer and we'll get that paid. I'll go
Okay.
tomorrow morning. Okay?
Sounds good.
Awesome, thank you very much.
Thanks
Appreciate
a
it,
lot.
guys. Thank you.
Thanks for coming in.
Thanks for dealing with me and my impatience a little bit.
That's okay, I understand, I can't
Yeah.
do anything, you just had to come and meet with them. I'm
I
sorry.
wanted to see Rick anyways.
Okay,
See you guys.
have a good day.
Thank you.
From good of the kids, what are you gonna do? Well, these guys are all volunteers, they made a mistake, somebody made a mistake.
Now, if this July it happens again and he bumps way up, then we have to do something different. But that, I mean, that's just weird.
And it was during COVID, so there was no season.
Like, whoever, and they had to go in on 3 separate occasions, and whether they just didn't sweep the
And
sink
one of
tight.
them was a couple days apart, right? It
Yeah,
was like it was
yeah, they
off
were
and then it
all
was
only a
on.
couple of days apart, it's
Yeah.
like, you know, I don't know. I mean, the building is tight, but he should fix that outside spigot, because it is dripping consistently.
Well,
I didn't realize he was even involved in the.
He's not anymore.
Stuff out there, he
we'll
guess
just
he's
have to
been there
pay
for years.
attention to it after, that's all. If it happens again.
All right. How about an update on the replacement well? Are there, we gotta wait for them to come in and talk about it?
Yeah, we're at the electrical, but like I said, I asked them to come in and tie the thing in so I can qualify it.
Asset management grant,
So they have recommended submitting to study DEP of the final working to structure rates to town's needs. So it's them meeting with us.
So again,
okay, we gotta wait
Once
for them.
again, I mean, they can only tell you the projects and give us the timelines and when they think that they'll come in. It's ultimately up to you guys to decide what the rates should be.
Walnut Street tank,
That got funded at the town meeting, so we're just waiting on that. I still think that whenever they finish that work, I don't want to activate that thing until we come into a springtime or early summer, because I do believe that it's going to change the pressurization of the system, and I think we're going to pop a few leaks somewhere.
it'll definitely change it some, because you're gonna get places that get higher than they
Right.
would have before. But who knows, probably a 2-year lead time for the altitude, though.
It could be,
The way things are going, that's.
yeah.
Lincoln Street warehouse, any word on that, or are we still in the same?
I haven't heard a word.
Okay. How about Ross Messina's project?
I know he works, every now and then I see them off of Wet Chestnut in there working, but nothing out of them.
Okay. Job posting,
She hasn't even sent any candidates, so I needed to I finished the DEP's checklist, which was, they admit was actual rewrite of the emergency response thing. So I finished that, so I can look at that.
But she hasn't sent anything recently on any other candidates or anything
No.
else to do.
we can skip the capital budget thing, that budget stuff.
That's all done, I think.
Water rates, we gotta wait for the engineers to come in and talk to us. About the solar, maybe,
I haven't had time because I needed the checklist to have a date, end date of this month, so it wasn't gonna miss. And I've gotta go through and how they apply the credits, and there is a grant thing coming up out of Mass, I forget what it is, Mass Clean, there's something coming up. I think they allot about a max of $200,000 if you get the grant. But,
for solar?
yeah, well, it's to anything to energy efficiency,
Okay.
which they've talked about solar plants in different places. But I need to calculate out what we're getting, and then you might have to discuss it with the town to not get chopped off. I mean, if you put it in one spot, you don't want to be chopped off everywhere else, because then you're not gaining.
No, if we're gonna do it, we're gonna do it everywhere, we're gonna supply ourselves with electricity. So,
Right, so
you put a field here, and you put a field over on Auburn Avenue, and then you put something up on Manley Street and supply them, every one of them.
it's not outwardly apparent how they do it, so I have to sit with Terry in it. I mean, she's gave me a whole pile of numbers, and I stuffed them in a folder, so they're not gonna walk away, but I need to dissect it. It's,
And you said you gotta get the DEP stuff in, so we don't
Right.
run afoul of that, particularly with all the things we're gonna have going on.
yeah.
touch base when they told you he was sick, is still gonna just try to do it our next meeting, or?
Yeah, he does plan on coming in, but he wasn't gonna be clean, and I forget what day he said, but, you know, we don't have a meeting on that date, so. I mean, unless you wanna hold a special meeting, he said he'd come in, but,
Our next one's at the third,
yeah, you're about 2 weeks out. I
June
think.
6th.
June sixth, yeah, because of.
This month they both popped up early. We're 2 weeks behind us. They'll have to go.
Might as well have them come in for that, I'm not trying to set up a special.
Yeah.
So now, should we sign the abatement for him?
I have to adjust it. I can do it right now tomorrow.
You want to
You
do
might
it
as
now?
well while we're here,
Yeah.
it's done.
And then I wanted to go over some of our tie-in fees and stuff so that you can understand. We're gonna be discussing setting the rates and stuff. I don't, if you look at this rate sheet here, you see where we put in 3/4 inch line, $2,800, 1 inch line, 34, 43, inch and a half, 2 inch, it's $10,000, $10,687. 3 inch line, $33,000, 4 inch line is $66,000. Years ago, we went to a town meeting, and we wanted to build another well, and one of our residents got up and said, why do we need a new well? And I explained to her that they were building new subdivisions in town, and as they built them, we were gonna need more water. And she said, well, no, I thought we owned our wells and we paid for them. I said, we did, but as they build these, we're not gonna have enough water. So the woman says to me, do you think that these contractors are gonna stop by and drop off a check and share it with me so that I can partake in their profits on the subdivision? I said, I don't think so. So anyway, so the town meeting decided to turn the well down. So I went back to the contractors and I was telling them, we're gonna end up having a moratorium on building because we're not gonna have enough water. So I says, we got an idea where we could charge you. I asked the engineers at that time, I said, how much does it cost to drill a well? At that time, it was about $500,000. So I said, well, how many 3/4 inch services could we tie in before we need to drill another well? I think they said it was 500 services, new services, and you're gonna need a new well. So we come up with a fee of $2,800 for it. Every time a house got built with a new 3/4 inch line, that way there, the homeowner is actually buying their own well.
Right.
If you use a 1 inch line, those houses usually had, at that time, 3 bathrooms and stuff like that, and they were bigger. So they said you could only build like 450 of those. And it went up to 4 inch line. They said if they're properly sized, that business would be using, I think you could only build 20, I don't know what it was, so maybe that was the 2 inch line. Was you gonna build 20 and you could only build 5 or 6 of them at the 4 inch line if they were sized right. So we put these fees in place. One of the things that we noticed that it did, when McDonald's came in, they wanted to build the building, they immediately came in and wanted a 4 inch line. And I told them, okay, $66,000. And they go, $66,000? We're not paying $66,000 for a water service.
They want a orange line for McDonald's?
Yeah, for McDonald's.
They want bigger lines than they need.
The engineers were engineering them that way.
Right.
So they said, we just built one in Buffalo and we didn't pay that. I said, well, here you're gonna have to pay that. So they came back and they said, we only need a 2 inch line. So they downsized it halfway. I said, okay, that's like, what is that, 10,000.
Right.
So I said, it's gonna be $10,000. And they go, oh, Oh, geez, that's crazy. So they came back, now they're down to 1.5 inches, and that's what that McDonald's has. Has 1.5 inch line and it gets along just fine. But the engineers design them bigger than, they just put in, you know, whatever, they oversize it
Right.
just because they don't want to be cut short. Well, we found that when you get a leak in a 4-inch line, you lose a lot more water than when you get a leak in a 1.5 inch line. So that helped us there. And so they ended up, we have enough money set aside for these tie-in fees. When we build a well, this money as it came in was actually making the mortgage payments on the well. So we weren't going back to the ratepayers and going up on their water rate to buy, build wells for the contractors. The other thing, the contractors, they didn't care, because they said to me, I'm gonna have to get a well drilled here at the house anyways, and that cost me a couple $1,000, and I'll have to spend a couple more thousand on water treatment. So, and then if something goes wrong in the first year, I own it.
Right.
So they said, you know, if I can give you $2,800 or $3,400 it becomes your headache, I'm okay with that. So they had no problem paying the tie-in fees, okay? Then years ago, we had the businesses up on Manley Street approached the water department. Their insurance rates, premiums were quite high because places like Shawmut Mills couldn't stack they were making headliners for trucks. I guess they're very flammable. And so the insurance companies were telling them they couldn't stack them more than like 8 feet off the ground because there wasn't enough water in the building to put out the fire. So they asked me to put another tank up there so that we could increase the water flow on Manley Street. So we went to town meeting and we brought it up, and town meeting turned it down. Townspeople said, we already have a tank with 5 million gallons in it. It's more water than, we'd ever need to put out a house fire. And businesses, the industrial customers, when you look at the list of, as the revenue comes in, 95% of our money is raised from residential customers. A small percentage of that comes from the industrial customers. They may have water bills that seem big, $2,000, but that's the domestic lines, okay? So one gentleman up there owned a building had said to me at the meeting, he said, if you put a 12-inch line instead of a 4-inch line in front of my building, he said, my premiums will drop $50,000 a year. And I couldn't believe it. His premiums were out of sight because he didn't have enough water for a fire sprinkler system. So I said, okay, if we built a tank and I said to you that your sprinkler fees for that year are going to be $5,000, do you have a problem with that? He goes, heck no. You save me $50,000 a year in premiums, I'll give you $5 grand of it. He said, no problem. So we went and we built that tank up there on Walnut Street, and we charged that off. The businesses actually paid the entire mortgage on that tank. We put in $1 million from the MBTE money that we got in a lawsuit, a class action suit, and then we got a low interest loan, and we raised enough money to make the mortgage payment every year on that tank with the tie-in fees. So you'll see it's based on square footage of the building. So if a small building's built that's just got like one line, it costs them $9,000 to tie that into our system.
Right.
Now, when they put that water line in, there's no meter on it. And a lot of times, these guys are, they're going out to bid every year on their insurance, or every couple of years on their insurance, and every insurance company wants to do their own fire flow, so they go out there and run water for a couple of days, and they give them bids on the insurance premiums for that building. So we came up with tie-in fees. When they build the building, they contribute $9,000 based on square footage, that is, of the building. So, like, I think when they built Market Basket, they paid us $80-something thousand when they built it. So we take that money and we put that right to paying off the note on the tank, or they pay 66% of the maintenance of the water tanks. The residential customers pay the other 34%. Because the water that we store, well, what do we got now, Wayne, about 6.5 million?
6.5 million gallons of
We
water.
got 6.5 million gallons of water, and that doesn't go anywhere for the most part. It just sits there waiting for a big fire. Because residential customers could probably put out their house fire with what's on a truck. But the big industrial customers need millions of gallons sitting there. When it goes to that building, we're not going to get paid for it because it doesn't have a meter on it. So what was happening to us is they were testing their, going out for bid on their premiums, running the water for days at, thousands of gallons a minute, and people were saying to us, I can't water my lawn, or I can't fill my pool, without a charge, but you're letting these guys do this, run these sprinkler lines, and they were right. So we had no meter, we had no way to charge them, so we come up with a fee schedule based on, I talked to a number of sprinkler companies, and we were going to do it by sprinkler heads. Well, some of the buildings are so big we couldn't count all the heads because they run layers.
Right.
So one sprinkler company said to me, on a 4-inch riser, you can only have, I don't know, it's like 250 heads. That's it. And on a 6-inch line, you're maxed out at, I don't know, 500 heads. So they said, just base it on that. If they got one 6-inch line, or if they have a 4-inch and a 6-inch, base it on that many heads based on how many risers they have. So some of these buildings have. The other thing that we had run into is that they didn't have enough water, so Chadwick's of Boston had to build their own tank, okay? Well, they spent, I don't know, it's hundreds of thousands, 800,000 building the tank. In the wintertime, they had to heat it. If they heated it, or did they use a propeller on that one?
I think they heated it, but they're gonna rip that tank down.
I know, but they spent the money building it. Then they heated it. And they said their expense on maintenance of that tank was $125,000 a year with manpower, taking care of the tank that they needed for the fire protection. If we provided them with more water with the new tank on Walden Street, they didn't need that tank.
Right.
Because now they had water coming in 2 directions. Because we were shoving water from our tank up Crescent Street, over to Manley Street, and up Manley Street, and it dead ends up on the Brockton Eastern line. So nothing was ever coming back. It goes up, but nothing comes back. So we can only shove it up the 12-inch main. So we built the tank at the other end. So once we get that tank full, we actually doubled the flow to those industrial customers. So that water gets up there and it just sits there waiting for a fire to happen. but the industrial customers need it. So that's why we came up with these sprinkler fees that the industrial customers have never complained about them, but that's what's supporting the maintenance of those tanks. The other thing is Lowe's has a tank, and they heat that one with electricity. It keeps it from freezing. I can't imagine how much money they spend a year keeping that hot. And then there's another one behind, what's the name of that company to the right of Bertarelli's with a tank out back?
Oh,
They have an oil burner.
it's like a half wing place now.
Yeah, Wig Place, I think it's Wig's, isn't it?
Yeah.
They used to have dressers in there, and they were done on like 4 floors, and they were on like a dry cleaners. They go around on a chain, and I remember they were like 4 floors, and every one of them had sprinkler lines on them. And they had 2 gigantic pumps out front that would vacuum the water out of our 12-inch main, and then they had a pump down back that pumped the water out of their tank and shoved it in, and they had to keep the pressure up at 200 pounds at all times on their line because we didn't have enough water. And so they were heating so that their tank didn't freeze solid, which it would if they didn't heat it. They were heating it with oil. They had an oil burner out there that actually heated the water. So their maintenance of their tank was enormous. So when people look at what we're charging them on their sprinkler fees, like $400 a quarter or something like that, it's peanuts compared to what they were paying to heat these things and the maintenance on them. So over time, we've come up with fees that balanced it out so that we could continue to expand the system, supply what the industrial customers needed, and not have the residential customers pay for it because they were just voting it down at town meeting. But to keep the industrial base growing, which we need for the tax base. So
These are all one-time fees?
these tie-in fees are one-time fees here that you're looking at. The sprinkler fees are every quarter. Every time the bill goes out, just like a water bill, they get a sprinkler fee. So some of the businesses, I don't know, I think Chadwick's the boss. How many risers do you think they have, Terry? 10,
I don't know, off
15?
the top of my head. United Drive has a lot, and
Yeah.
all their buildings, they have over 15.
That building has a main that goes all the way around it.
Back building from?
Yeah.
The chip pack, but the Chadwick's is bigger. It has more in it.
Yeah, it has lots of them. But
When's the last time you looked at those fees compared to when?
since we
August
started,
2016 was the last.
Yeah,
time.
Because when certain things, if they're for things like to try to put money in for maintenance, it's, you know, it's prices of things like painting tanks. Going up.
these are behind.
Yeah, we're gonna have, that's something we need to also look at when we do the rates.
Yeah.
So we don't just whack everything.
These fees back here, when you gave me sticker shock, when you told me how much a well was gonna cost,
Yeah.
I mean, we based these fees on $500,000. And we're looking at $1 million or whatever
Yeah.
now.
I think there's a date on there, those were last done on 2005, is that what it said at the top of the
Yep.
page?
Yeah, but they were adjusted, so they went up at one point, they came back down,
And then
and
they
they
came
just
back
went
down.
up, because the year we didn't make a thing, so like 2019, I believe.
That was when we had to go back. and do
Yes.
rates.
Yeah.
The other thing that we charge for is when a person comes in and builds a house on a, say, a Form A lot, the contractor and the subdivision pays for all the street work, okay? But if you buy a lot and it's already on an existing street, what we do is we have the tie-in fee, which is up here, so if they wanted a 1-inch line, $3,443. then Wayne has to go out, and if he has to put a 1-inch service in, and the main is on the same side of the street, he charges them another $1,500 because that's for the men, the truck, the copper, the fittings, the drill bits, and the police detail. So $1,500 is cheap. It's really cheap. If he goes across the street, he charges them $2,000. That's because he's using the same fittings, but he's using about 30 or 40 more feet of copper. The police detail is going to be longer, and he's probably going to end up using, we have this air hammer bullet that shoots it onto the street. So the detail is going to be there for longer than usual when we have to go under the road. If we have to cut it, then now he's got to deal with flowable fill and compaction and blacktopping and everything. So doing that for $2,000, that's behind. That fee's too cheap. So we tried to recoup, what it cost us. Just so we're not trying to make money, we're trying to break even, so that because we try to sell water for cost, whatever it costs us in labor, chemicals, power, whatever it costs us, we just say, okay, how many gallons of water did we sell last year? Divide that into how much it costs us, and that's how much it costs per gallon. So that's how we come up with water rate. But then when you come up with other things like building water tanks and stuff like that, you can't put, if you put it on the water rate just goes crazy.
Right.
Now we have another fee that we did put in there. When a guy comes in and he's making a proposal for, say, a 10-lot subdivision, we were basing that on, at some point after you build 2 or 3 or 4 subdivisions, you add more customers, you got more water mains, more services, Wayne needs another guy, we need another truck. So that money should be set aside for expansion of the capital that the town needs to take care of these infrastructure. So, and at one time we had it per subdivision, and then that didn't work out because one guy came in and he wanted to build a 2-lot subdivision, another guy came in with a 30-lot subdivision, and they both had the same fee. So we said, we based it on $2,100 per lot. Now, wait,
It's $2,500.
2,500, okay. So when the guy comes in and he said, I want to build 10 lots, $2,500 a piece, he gives us $25,000 toward expansion from the trucks and men that we gotta hire and bring on, with money that's actually set aside until you get a couple of these subdivisions. Like right now, we need another man. All of a sudden, Wayne says, he isn't able to do it with the manpower that we've had for the number of years. Needs another man. That means you're not just hiring a man, now you gotta supply him with a truck, tools, outfit the truck. So that's what that money is being used for. And so we, rather than going back to the townspeople at town meeting and then they start asking why we need it, they don't like the answer when you say the town's getting bigger and we, if they building more subdivisions, they don't want to pay for it. So we found that this works. Contractors don't seem to have a problem as long as they can keep building. They pay the fees and we keep expanding. So do we have any other fees, Terry, that we charge?
Just like bulk water, like if someone's getting.
Oh, yeah,
pool water or whatever.
if we sell water at cost to the homeowner, but the water that we sell to the trucks that come in for trailer trucks to fill pools and stuff, we double the price? Is that what it used to be?
$10.
Yeah, $10 for 100 cubic feet.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we're making a profit on that, because that water, for the most part, goes out of town.
Okay.
And it goes into Brockton and stuff like that. Wherever they have a water ban, if people can't fill their swimming pool, and we got the water, we figured we'd sell the extra water. That money comes in and falls out as surplus. Now, when you see surplus at town meeting, and a lot of people say, oh my God, look at the money that they got down there. It's not from water, it's not from overcharging the customers. Say when this building gets built on Lincoln Street, and if they paid us like $140,000, $180,000 for their square footage, based on their square footage,
Yeah.
that comes in, that's money that we didn't expect to come in, that falls out at the end of the fiscal year as surplus. And everybody says, look at that, they overcharged us $180,000, it has nothing to do with it. That $180,000, we didn't even expect it. It came in, but it's designated to go toward the tank,
Right.
to pay for the tank and get rid of the mortgage on it, and to be put aside for the maintenance of that tank. So we don't have, the last time we painted it 3 or 4 years ago, it was like $1 million. And we didn't pay $1 million to build the tank.
1.4.
Years ago, 1.4 million to paint it.
That's good for how many years?
So we'll stretch it as far as it can go.
Yeah, but years ago, they used to put a lot of lead in it, and the first paint job lasted us about 40 years.
Yeah, so that was actually de-leading the tank, so now it's
But they
it's
said
all
that
de-leaded.
now the paint won't last anywhere near as long as the paint with the lead in it did. So they said, plan on painting it more often. So, you know, we're trying to get that job paid for through residential customers paying 34%, industrial customers paying 66%, right?
Yeah.
And we're trying to get it paid off before it needs to be painted again.
Right.
And maybe have some money set aside in surplus, so when the bill comes in at $1.5 million or $2 million, we've got maybe $1 million to put down on it, so we don't have to be working out of the hole again, paying interest. So we need to be able to explain to the residential customer that's not their $1 million that we overcharged them, that's money that we collected from the industrial customers, and we've been setting it aside to maintain the industrial customers' tanks and stuff. So it's a misunderstanding of what we're doing, and it's actually, and it's the benefit to the residential customer. So, any other fees or anything that we do?
Other than the fact that we're gonna need to really take a look at pricing on those, the rates. I don't think any other fees that we have. And we do have a whole bunch of different rates that might look at simplifying too, when we get to that point. We'll talk to them, pay per hour. That comes in the stuff in the numbers, we have more different rates than just about any place I have used to be working.
Over the years that these rates have been formed, they've been tweeted. And I remember when I got here 38 or 40 years ago, there was people who were coming in and they were complaining they had a 2-family house. And there's no way that both should be charged the same basic charge, because the tenant can't possibly use the water I use because they don't have an outside faucet. And they can't water their lawn, and they don't have a garden and all that. So we come up with if there's a 2-family, the first floor pays the full regular rate, and the second unit pays half of that. And if there's 3 units, the first one pays the full amount of basic charge, and then the other 2 pay half. Because and even on big condominiums and stuff like that, if there's 20 units, there's only one outside spigot. And the lawn can only be watered through one outside spigot, so you know, they all argued that, you know, that we should charge one full amount, and then, so that's how we tweeted it. And we're gonna have to tweak things as things change, you know, that just, you look at the charges, and if they're not fair anymore, then we try to make them as fair as we can for as many people as we can. And same thing, and I'll tell you, I'm not criticizing the town meeting, because a lot of good ideas come out of town meeting when people start, you know, when these people bring up the fact that they don't want to pay for a well that they've already bought and paid for, and they don't want to give their water away. And when we came up with the tie-in fees, it worked. And contractors didn't have a problem with it, so, you know, so you get good ideas. Sometimes you get a little disturbed when people pick on you at town meeting, but sometimes when you come back and you sit down and say, yeah, they were right. And you just figure out a better way of doing it. So, I'm trying to, there's any other fees that we have? Well, as things come up, we'll explain how they work, just so you know.
Appreciate it.
All right, you got anything else, Art? Kerry?
Nope, next meeting is June 6th.
June 6th.
We'll have Tater and Howard here then.
We could have a new variant by then.
Could, we will. Did you redo that abatement?
Yeah, it's
Why?
on his desk.
We want to sign that before we go?
Yep, definitely.
So you don't have to call us tomorrow?
I know,
Yeah.
I was thinking about that.
So that come out right, Kerry?
Yeah.
Came out.
Yep.
Okay, do I hear a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.